In a moment, we're going to take a tour of the site. But first of all, let me introduce you to Stefano Wagner, who is the jazz lover and collector who has curated the exhibition and joins us from his record room in Lugano in Switzerland. Hi, Stefano.
Hello, Jez.
Sorry,
Hello.
sorry about all that
All
nonsense.
the friends and collectors outside. So we are in a physical room now behind me. So you see, there is a collection. It's
I
not only
know.
to the world.
When we chatted yesterday, you said, "Would you like me to do this in my record room?" And I said, "Of course. You know, there's no choice. We've got to see. You know, it's a dream for anyone who loves music. I mean, as you can see, I've got a lot of CDs behind. I'm kind of embarrassed because you're not a fan of CDs, are you?"
I'm of the generation of the CDs. They told us they were life lasting and whatever. And now I'm back on vinyl. Don't make a big discussion out of it, but the sound of vinyl is the sound of vinyl, and we see afterwards you can handle them. CDs are some kind of small things which doesn't give you the same feeling as having a record in your hands. But this is my opinion, obviously.
Okay, well, look, very soon what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep dive into the Esquire label, and we're going to have a look around your record collection as well. So if you love records, if you love obscurities, you love great covers, then stay with us because Stefano's going to show us some brilliant stuff. But before that, we're going to take a brief tour of the site, of the Covers Club site, and I have to say we're going to meet Simon Ledbetter now of Scaramanga, and he's done a beautiful job of capturing somehow the kind of essence of Esquire, but presenting it in a friendly and modern way. So we're going to have a little tour so that you know what we're talking about when I go and chat to Stefano in a moment. So take it away, Simon.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm going to go straight into the screen share so you can get to see the site, and then I will continue talking. So hopefully you can see the entrance to the site. So overall, what we try to do with this is obviously we're producing a digital exhibition, but we wanted to recreate a kind of a physical environment, and we wanted to imbue the site with this atmosphere of both the experience of going to a jazz club and the whole idea of all the covers and the artwork of the period of the 50s and 60s. So when you land on this site, you will see this wonderful image of a jazz club I'd like to go to, but in reality, we had to fabricate this image. It's made up, which is a shame, but I think we should try and get a jazz club like that in somewhere close to us. As you scroll down the page, you will then get introduced to the site itself, and it's a nice intro into the site. I won't be playing this live stream, otherwise we will definitely get feedback, but the main bulk of the site is right at the very bottom, and what we try to do is create rooms to represent each of the artists involved. So you've got the photo room, which contains an interview and information about Val Wilmer's involvement with the Esquire label. Then Ralph Steadman, who is a very well-renowned illustrator, and he cut his teeth in the early days at Squire. Ron Atkins has his own space. The gallery room. So on each of one of these, if you go into each artist's room, you will be able to learn a bit more, and then also discover, there's an interview, discover the covers that they were directly involved with. So what you're able to do on the website is compare between the UK version and the US version. And on some of these, if you reveal it, you'll get a little bit more information you can see side by side. But the covers on each of the artist's room directly relate to their involvement on these particular albums. As we go through the site, you can also access the rooms, and here again we try to imbue this kind of sense of maybe a 50s diner menu, or the board above the entranceway in the design. Interestingly, all of this, we didn't have anybody we could go to ask for the Esquire logo. As a modern day digital developer, we often go to people and say, can you supply this logo? Everything on this site we had to cobble together and create on our own. You can visit each of these rooms, but the gallery room itself will display all of the albums that we've selected to present on the website with Stefano, and you can see a quick side-by-side view of all the covers, and you can just see how dramatically different they can be from the UK side and the state side. And you're able to filter these based on the artist. So we can actually go through and look at Rouse here. Malcolm Walker has a selection. So you can view this to your heart's content and enjoy this. Further on, we have the memories of Esquire. And what we're trying to encourage everybody to do is, if you do have an anecdote or something to share about your experiences with Esquire, then you can come to this section and share your memory, and complete this simple form. Ensure that you approve that your comment can be published, and we'll get it up on the website, because hopefully on this talk where everybody is enthusiastic about jazz, and then perhaps the label itself, and we want to encourage as many people to get involved and have their say. So if we keep going on, we've managed to collate a Spotify playlist of some of the music. If you have a Spotify account, you'll be able to listen to that in full. So you can explore this whole section and hopefully get a sense of the period and the music and the beauty in the album covers. So that is a brief tour, and I do want to keep it brief because the conversation with Stefano is going to be far more interesting than me waffle on about a website. So I hand it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Simon. And yeah, it genuinely is a beautiful site. So after this conversation, go and sort of check it out. It has, as you said, it kind of has a real feel of the moment. So Stefano, let's talk about we'll do plenty of stuff later on looking at the covers and stuff, but I just wanted to get into the Esquire label and its background, because it seems to me it captures a really nice moment where it's covering British jazz, American jazz, the relationship between the UK and America, and also a specific sort of point in time. So tell us about when the label was founded, because it was just after the war, and about the people who founded it and what their original idea behind the label was.
Yes, there is basically my interest is this kind of transatlantic relations, which are there all the time. Also, later on in the 70s, the blues goes back from the UK to the States with the Stones and John Mayall and whatever. I think it was a period post Second World War. Soldiers, US soldiers were in Europe. They brought in this music. This music was interesting. And the first things I saw is the 48 records from Esquire were local groups. By the way, the first really Esquire record still on a shellac 10-inch dimension was of a band of Carlo Kramer itself. Carlo Kramer's Chicagoans with, for example, Humphrey Lyttelton playing in this group. So he was.
We should say, Stefano, Carlo Kramer was one of the two people who founded it.
Peter founded it, yes, of course.
Peter Newbrook, who was a cameraman, I think, and Carlo Kramer, who was a drummer, but just
he was a drummer, yes, and then he got a producer of Esquire. So there was obviously a need to put the music on this commercial base, and so they made this record. It's interesting to see how they started to have local artists, and then at a certain point, and I think you should all then listen to the stories told by Ron Atkins, especially, who is the one who gave us a lot of feedback stories. I myself did not know about this story. What happens then, they got a relation with Bob Weinstock. Bob Weinstock, the famous prestige owner who had a record store in New York. And they started to produce, beside the British jazz artists of this time, they started to produce the prestige records. And this was a little bit my entry to Esquire. So I came because I'm a prestige collector. Historically, I have a complete prestige set. And I discovered that they were issued. That's the big difference, for example, to Blue Note. Prestige sold their rights to different countries, UK, Italy, Netherlands, Germany, and they were reproduced. And I discovered, especially this difference, Simon already said it, it's amazing the difference of the package. So the music inside is the same and the package is different. So they started with 10-inch shellac. This was the period, late 40s, when then the vinyl technology came. So the whole question who made it also possible to reach a broad market, let's call it this. A shellac, whoever had a shellac in his hand know how delicate it is. Vinyl was really a revolutionary thing. And this the story goes then afterwards to the fact that they produced from the original prestige records made by Rudy van Gelder. And it said that the UK ratios have a better quality. I agree with that. You can listen because the vinyl was of a higher quality in the UK. The US one were made already with recycled vinyl.
So Stefano, before we're definitely going to talk a lot about prestige in a moment. Before we do that, I just want to go back a little bit to when they started, because interestingly enough, and this I didn't know, I mean, the label was founded in 1947 by Peter Newbrook and Carlo Crema, and they put out the first records by Ronnie Scott, Johnny Dankworth, I think, and Kenny Graham. I don't know whether you've got any of those records, but they started off by releasing sort of British jazz, just post-war, when everything was a bit grey, and they did it with this sort of slightly sort of chic. Someone described it as bachelor pad cool. Even the name Esquire, has a certain ring to it, and the design from the start was. Do you have any of those early the British ones, or do you just collect the British artist ones, or do you just collect the prestige ones?
No, this is the story of a collector. Obviously, you start by entering a collection and then you want to have a full collection. So I have basically a full set. I miss maybe 20, 30 Esquire records. Normally, people have to discover now them. 20 years ago, I could afford them. Now I have to buy only one a month because the prices have risen. But I have also, I could show you.
Yeah, show us something there. Show us some one of the early British releases. And so, as I understand it, Esquire was run out of a flat in Bedford Avenue in West One, with a studio in the basement where they used to record the albums. And what have you got for us there, Stefano?
This is, for example, I hope you can see it now. So the first national skiffle contest, 10-inch, and you see skiffle then brings me very quick then to the 60s, not to the Beatles and whatever. It's some kind of interesting part of the discovery of US music somehow with the British now roots behind. This is, for example, an original. It's still 10-inch. I hope you can see. It has this, maybe I take it out from the...
Is that shellac or vinyl?
No, this is already vinyl. This is vinyl. Already the so-called 20 series. You see it on the top here, okay. 20/something. This is vinyl, while the shellac were the 10 and the 32, then the 12-inch records were the 32 line.
So what year is that record there? You're gonna have to forgive us, people. We're gonna get a little bit nerdy, a little bit collectory in this. So what year is that?
We're already with vinyl, so we are already in 54. So
54.
We got into the new technology, and and the form is still the 10-inch. So maybe Simon has showed us. So Simon, my how compliments, whatever. I really think you did a fantastic job. We only stick to 12-inch LP records, so there would be another story behind with 10-inch. And sorry to show you another small one. There are a few hundreds of this one Yorkshire jazz band. This is 7-inch, 45 RPM. So again, you see my passion about covers. Obviously, the music is interesting me too, but you see this fantastic cover, Yorkshire.
That's a beautiful cover. Yeah.
We are 55, recorded 55.
And it's got that, it's got a very sort of modern look to it. Very, and it's bright, it's funny, and the Esquire logo itself is, modern in the time, isn't it? That doesn't feel to me like it's coming out of post-war Britain. It feels like it's sort of in appreciation of, perhaps what's happening in the States a little bit, right? But with a British touch.
Yes, this is, then we can start maybe compare a little bit. I could make you, for example, my preferred example now, which, by the way, is, it's kind of a Holy Grail record, Soul Train by John Coltrane. I mean, the music itself would make the record. So this is the American. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
so let's just, before you do it, Stefano, let's just explain to people where we are now, because what's happened, because I think there's an important thing we need to explain, which is that basically Esquire are there and they're releasing UK artists, but then they make this very important deal with Bob Weinstock. And Bob Weinstock runs a record store in New York. And he reaches out to Esquire to say, would you like to release these records in the UK? Is that right?
And he's the owner and producer of Prestige.
Of Prestige, yeah.
For example, this is a classical Bob Weinstock record. So you see, before then, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, or Sonny Rollins, all these Thelonious Monk, then they went to Columbia or Impulse record, whatever, they passed all there. And what I wanted to show is just to pick up what you say, the British thing. Now, exactly the same content, the same record. And this is the British cover by Ralph Steedman. So you see the Soul Train. I would not say better or whatever. So it's just what made me so interesting. The whole story is how different they are. So this is British. I allow myself, I'm a Swiss citizen, to say, I would say, yes, this is very British. And look, somehow, the difference, I don't want to judge it, but it's a complete different graphic art design behind it. And this is what the exhibition would be about.
And the thing about this, of course, is it's unusual, because Blue Note Records, when they released an album in America and here, there's the same cover. And nowadays, you would never think really you're going to get drastically different covers. But this music, effectively, Prestige were licensing it to Esquire in the UK, and Esquire could do whatever they want with the cover art. So we started getting this unique art that came out. Prestige completely different, as you say, but it was unusual that they just said, do whatever you want to do.
This is the Ron story, the Ron Atkins story or interview, no? Who somehow picks up this, what you're saying, Jazz, is this freedom to somehow commercialize a product. Is something which today would be completely impossible, now that you have this freedom. And I think he explains quite well how free there was a freedom, this basement production, this kind of spontaneous approach to the theme. He is explaining it, but they already had Ralph Steedman. They had pictures, photographs of Walt Wilmer. So they had a thought of quality of design, which was obviously different, and which makes my interest about covers and my collection.
So why don't you take us through a few examples? Because what I learned from listening to Ron Atkins and Val Wilmer and Ralph Steadman, brilliant interviews on the site done by John Fordham, the great jazz journalist, is that it's essentially they had a sort of certain amount of money, and so sometimes they would be able to afford to get Ralph Steadman to do a cartoon. Sometimes they could get a Val Wilmer photograph, but sometimes Ron Atkins, who by his own account was not, he wasn't a graphic designer. He would just have to do the cover with the printers. So you ended up with some pretty basic covers in a sense, but that have almost become classics in their own right. So why don't you show us a few of the different types of covers that Esquire had for the Prestige releases?
So we have seen so the Ralph Steadman. So the Ralph Steadman, I already see the artist which got famous afterwards. By the way, it's quite similar. I will show you afterwards some examples. I mean, Andy Warhol was beginning to probably to make his money to survive. He was making record covers too. Then afterwards he got famous with the Factory, whatever, an artist. But I think many artists had somehow an easy cash income to make me a cover, get £1 and make me a cover or something like that. So this was Ralph Steadman. We have both these records on the site, so you can also see detail. This is the example of a Val Wilmer picture, a photo, and then with what then Ron Atkins said was this printer layout. So they probably made the design without being aware to be designers. So he explained this, and this is the original Prestige. Okay, again, completely different, no? And I was amazed about the Val interview. She got very personal about Miles Davis. I mean, it's interesting also to listen to her, what it was in the 50s to be a woman photographer.
Yeah.
And, it looked like to be a very hard thing. Another good example for maybe, and we come with that afterwards again. This is, for example, you all know Dan Martin, no? This original Prestige, no?
Famous cartoonist who was, made his name, I think, principally with Mad magazine, but I may be wrong about that. But
yes, fantastic. Yeah. So he was also one who got afterwards famous by doing other things, but at the beginning he was earning money by doing covers. Now this is the British reissue, and I could not find any indication who is an art director, a graphic designer behind this cover. And probably this is Ron Atkins printer designs. No, they probably just had to make a cover, and the printer decides. So you see this symbolic notes around and whatever. So again, I would say art design, graphic designer, and then a more a printer approach. But the interesting thing for me is at the end, now 50, 60 years, 70 years later, I can think it's art again. Probably it was not born with this approach, but more from this commercial, give them a cover, a British cover.
I think if you listen to the interview with Ron Atkins on the site, he talks about the fact, I mean, I think he went there to be a sort of marketing person to go out and plug the records to the radio stations, but then he found himself in a situation where, Ron, give us a record cover. So he'd have to, go to the printers and they would design it maybe with a photograph he gave them. But also it was record production of records and production of covers was expensive at that time. I mean, it was printing was expensive, and presumably they had to work with a sort of minimal sort of palette that they could only have a certain number of colors at that time.
But yes, in one of my former exhibitions I did, I had
well, Stefano's frozen, I think. We lost him. Maybe I could talk to Simon for a bit while we get Stefano back. Simon, are you there?
I am. Yeah. Hi.
Okay. I mean, interesting from the point of view of a graphic designer. What we were just talking about there. I mean that era. I mean, quite sort of basic stuff, because nowadays, obviously, you can design anything on a laptop and sit around. And in those days, you had to get you couldn't do that, right? You had to go to the printers and get them to help you.
Indeed, and you've hit the nail on the head, because one of them, mine's very observational and deep knowledge about the Prestige and the Esquire covers. But before 1960, everything that was created would have had to be illustrated or hand drawn, because they didn't have computers that you could just type and select from hundreds of fonts. And what I found really curious is looking at all the album covers, where you could see where even the Esquire logo, you can see how it's been hand drawn or photographed from an actual calligraphy pen, and some of the illustrations and the fonts that are used on the very early 50s, like pre-60s, you will see hand cut, hand drawn illustrative forms for the letters. Then you go into the 60s, and in this country we had Letraset, which had dry transfer, and it kind of revolutionized graphic design. And you can see then that the 60s covers had this neater, type blocked look to it, and the designers would have had to select from perhaps what Letraset had printed and they had in their drawers at that time. And then obviously, if we jump forward to today, we can use any font, any design, full color. And what I really appreciated about the design is the ingenuity of the illustrators and the designers on some of the illustrative ones. They create this lovely atmosphere and lovely design, which was very reminiscent of Soul Bass, who was very famous for the Vertigo posters and all the Hitchcock stuff. And they just have that vibe of that era and that period, and that natural design. And everything we see now is so polished, and this feels perhaps just like the music. It's raw and real.
And I'd imagine that, being in and around the music business a bit myself, is if you design an album cover now, you're going to have to go through probably management and PR and marketing. And I just love this idea of the fact that they've got the music in this basement in London, and then they're saying, "Oh, give us a cover," and Ron Atkins himself can kind of just come up with, and that sort of freedom. And Stefano's back, so we'll bring him in a second. But that sort of idea of just creativity coming out of freedom and accident, almost not having all these barriers that we maybe sometimes have around us now.
And I think that's the charm of what we're looking at, and this exhibition as well. I just briefly, we'll hand back to Stefano because he's back, but I forgot to mention the website address for everybody to go and have a look at and see these covers themselves. So it's esquirecover.club for those that are interested.
Right, so Stefano, thank you, Simon, for helping us out there. Stefano, you're back with us.
I'm back. Sorry, I had a blue screen. Can you imagine Windows? A blue screen is something which I hadn't had since 20 years.
I'm not sure what that is. Like a blue
Can you hear me now?
I can. In fact, you're better than you were before. So why don't we? I'll tell you what, because you were just showing us that Three Trombones album, and I know that this is how much of a completist Stefano is. It doesn't just stop at having an American version and a British version.
Yes.
You show us the other versions. And I mean, this is fascinating because not many labels would have different covers in every different country. But what have they got for us there?
Yeah, you may remember this was the original 56 Prestige Dan Martin cover. Classic. And now something 1 year later, 57, something happened. Prestige published this one. It's again Trombone by Three. Now have a look at the upper corner, the left corner, and you see Prestige was having an idea to put more music on one record just by letting turn them slower. So this is a 16 RPM record. I can't listen to it. I don't have a record. I can listen 45, 78, whatever. Yeah?
No, I mean, there might be some. I'm sure there's going to be some collectors watching you say, "Oh, there's lots of these records out there," but I've never heard of this before. And I mean, does anybody have did such a thing exist? A 16 RPM speed on a record?
Prestige made 6 records, which 16, and then obviously discovered that especially the quality was too low because it was turning so slowly that you had not enough, let's say, analogical information to keep the quality of the sound. But this record now has two other things I would like to show. One is just below in the corner on the other side, and I have in my hand an Andy Warhol. So this is an Andy Warhol cover. And you see again what comes up, this graphic artistic approach. But the producer of this whole thing is Ray Miles. And so we come then to Blue Note. Obviously, Ray Miles known for that kind of approach. So this is for me a perfect copy to get in. On one side, on this idea between art, graphic design, obviously the Bob Weinstock who is behind, who tries to find a new technology, so the producer. And at the end, it's a Rudy van Gelder record. Also, it's the best you can have probably from technologies. I would say still today, the registration of Rudy van Gelders are fantastic. But just to see or to show how things go on, the French did also trombone, not per three, but par trois. Obviously, the French have also changed the title. So you have trombone per trois. And you see again, exactly the same content, exactly the same music, and this completely different again cover.
Wow. So you mentioned Rudy van Gelder there, and I just want to leave the covers just for a second and talk about the sound of Prestige, because Rudy van Gelder, as jazz fans will know, had his studio up there in Englewood Cliffs, and he was the sort of jazz. He's the most famous sort of jazz engineer, really, of all time. And what can you say anything about the sound of Prestige Records, and maybe the difference between the quality of the recordings that you hear in the vinyl in America and the UK, but the sound? What was special about the Prestige sound, maybe compared to Blue Note, or maybe it's a similar sound? What do you think?
No, Rudy van Gelder was also on Blue Note recordings. So, but I think it shows up what was the real innovation in these 40s companies. This quartet, I call it the quartet. So you needed a Bob Weinstock, you needed a Kramer, obviously, to have this entrepreneurial approach. They had to bring things together, the money, whatever was behind. So the Ron Atkins question behind. Then you have this graphic art design, the package, the cover. Don't forget, sorry if I've come back again, the back of these covers, these are liner notes, which are still one of the best information source. Even if you have Google and whatever you want in the world, there is so many information. And remember, nobody had Google Internet. How do you got your information about what was the music, the time, what was happening in the States? The liner note, the third one. So this musicologic approach, Ira Gittler, Berendt wrote most of the liner notes behind. And the other thing, the discovery of a professional recording. I mean, the sound engineer that you wanted to get to achieve this quality also from musical point of view. My impression is in the room I'm in now, I obviously have now a hi-fi of the 70s again. So I have a Ravox, which was a Swiss company who did this hi-fi. And I think Rudy was capable to register knowing what was the output. So it's not that you can just register. You have to know what is the technology then to give the sound in the homes. And this mix makes it so perfect. Still in my eyes, I don't think all these remasters, which are now you can have on DVD, on CD-ROM, whatever, they sound the same as a well-preserved vinyl record of the 60s. This is my impression, but you need the right stuff to play it.
So, and just to get really geeky for a minute, but I like this. If you're into your vinyl, you'll know that, you know, vinyl comes in different weights and flexibilities and stuff. And you were saying earlier that basically there was a moment when British releases of Prestige records on the Esquire label were better quality than what was coming out on American Prestige, because they were recycling the vinyl in America, right?
one thing you immediately would feel, this also stopped then with Prestige when they got into first commercial troubles. If you have a 50, 60s vinyl record in your hand, it weighs between half and a whole kilogram. It's a heavy thing. It's not shellac that breaks. It's really an industrial product, but already the weight gives you an idea. So you can't, it's not flexible as the rock and roll or rock vinyl of the 70s. And they used pure vinyl in the UK. So probably, or they had the money, or somebody was very attentive, while Prestige very soon started to use kind of recycled vinyl. So you can recycle vinyl. They are less heavy, so the weight of the record itself. And especially in the deal with Bob Weinstock, don't ask me how this could happen, but Ron is a little bit telling about this. They were allowed to receive the original matrix from Rudy van Gelder, and he supervised the production in the UK. So the matrix of the Esquire were with this graving from Rudy van Gelder. So the whole thing together, maybe it's a story, but I can hear it. But I can hear it because probably I want to hear it. But we think that the Esquire records are better than the Prestige originals. Not the early ones. The early ones were okay, but they very soon got less quality in the production.
And what I heard was that when they recycled the vinyl, they actually were quite lazy about taking the labels off. So you'd end up with little bits of paper in amongst the vinyl. So it wouldn't be as good a quality as it was if it's just pure vinyl. So Stefano, I think, we could talk all day about Esquire, but I think jazz fans won't forgive me if we don't go a little bit wider in your collection. So let's just talk about your collection for a moment. How many records have you got in that room where you are now?
Yes, this is something around 10,000 records. Please consider always I'm a small collector because let's be honest, I know real collectors which have 50,000 shellac records. And I can, just to give you an idea, this 10,000 records make at least 5 tons. So it's the struggle of the collector is a space and an engineering statical problem. Where can you keep all this weight, for example? And so it's about 10,000 records here, mostly 50s and 60s. I was a youngster in the 80s and 90s, so there is a part which is more, it's like I have two brain sides. No, one is the emotional one, the youngsters period, and the other is the real collector side, no, which is you want to have a series, a complete series. So say 5,000 at least would be this Prestige Riverside collection, which is almost complete. 2,000 are my whatever punk rock could be with the 80s and 90s and so, and then something between. I just wanted to show you an example. Where do we put this? I mean, these are some of my pearls, no? So Prestige then at a certain point started to have a Bluesville series. They got back to the South with these people, Samuel Charters and all that, to find out where have the bluesmen which got famous in the 20s and the 30s with Paramount Records, the Race Records, they found it out, they brought it back, no? Then the Rolling Stones and discovered again Howlin' Wolf. The Americans forgot their roots, no? Prestige did this Bluesville. Look at these covers, no? I mean, this one, Shaky Jake, no? Look at these, no? These are already images, and then a fantastic one, like Lightning Hopkins with Sonny Terry, no? This is what comes. So is this jazz? Is it rock? Where shall I put it? But this is Prestige, and this is another side which was one of my first exhibition at the public library. So you see, for example, I don't go especially to music places. So I got to a library to make an exhibition, was about Prestige. and this discovery of roots. So they jumped in by new jazz, and then all of a sudden they discovered blues. They had an international series. They published flamenco, somehow Italian music from Fischer's, Eastern European music from New Guinea, somehow to find out what was the roots of music. Never forget, most of them had European roots, no? Famous the Blue Note, but they were immigrants. Probably they had to escape from the hard time in the 30s in Germany. And so they had this idea to discover Afro-American music, and somehow they bring in the roots of this music, and this could be polka. Why not? And this transatlantic comes through again, and I'm a collector from this side too. So Prestige is fascinating, not only because the jazz, but because of the whole roots story. By the way, coming back, there is a story that brings back to UK again, which was in the 60s, then the so-called Transatlantic Record Company, who then reproduced all Folkaway things when the story was rediscovered of folk music by mixing it up with Irish, Scottish folk music. This is a little bit how I collect, if I can make me understand. So Prestige is the core. Riverside
Stefano,
is the
before you go on, just show us, take your camera and show us your your Prestige, because we want to have a look around your room.
I hope it works.
We'll go with it. I mean, show us the Prestige, because you've got a
okay. On this side, what you see is we all think that IKEA is a wonderful partner. So you need also to have storage places. So this is Prestige. We just can walk through if it works. No, I can say, okay, let's have it. Oh, Cindy Maiden, Trouble in Blues. No, let's just take out something. Oh, Donald Byrd, the Youngbloods. No, so this is complete Prestige.
So that is a complete set of every Prestige record ever released.
Even I have then some funny examples if you're interested. Obviously collectors questions, which is like misprinted records, no, which I somewhere could show you some Sonny Rollins, but I will find it afterwards. Then it goes on this side. Sorry, we're still on the Prestige side. So for example, this is the whole so-called new jazz series, Ry Brandt, what comes here, Walt Dickerson, vibraphone. And for example, here you see the 10-inch Prestige. Let's get one out. King Pleasure. Look this awful, can you see it? This awful picture. What is this? Then comes, for example, fantastic. Can you see that? The Gate City Singer, Peace in the Valley, Gospel series. So what did Prestige wanted to do? But they did things like that. What else can I? Any kind of reissue is in there. So it's 2 walls of Prestige.
How many records is that? Did you say what's the complete Prestige?
The complete Prestige with kind of whatever reissues, whatever could be 3,500 records, something like that. Sorry, I take away. Then on this side, it's on this wall you have the whole Riverside, which is inside there. So Riverside was one of my.
We can't see that, Stefan. Get us the Riverside. Show us the actual collection. We're just seeing your.
Just take one out without any. Oh, fantastic! A Thelonious Monk. So you see what it is. Riverside was for me interesting too. I did an exhibition 2 years ago in Ascona, the New Orleans Jazz Festival of Ascona, about Paul Bacon. Paul Bacon was the art designer of Riverside, and he got also famous because he did thousands of dust covers of books of all the famous writers in the 60s and whatever. So this was a very specific one about Paul Bacon, who never got as famous as Wright Miles or Don Martin and this person. So I wanted to pick up that. And just to finish on this side, this is the emotional part. So you could find amenities like, I hope everybody sees an Andy Warhol here. This is an original, still unpeeled banana, Velvet Underground, Lou Reed. So this is things I have seen. I've gone to Lou Reed concerts, and so you could see in the rock. And this is more by artists. So the upper line is a full Miles Davis. I think I have every kind of Miles Davis in even obscure records of Miles Davis. I can't see if you see, these are still official ones. Look at this picture again. Can we see it?
Yes.
As a boxer.
That's one of the reissues. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
And
Stefano,
then
take us
John
back. You've got John Coltrane. Take us back to your seat now, because we're all getting getting a bit seasick following you around. But so look, but just to finish off, I'm going to ask you about a few of your kind of what your favorites and classics. What's the most expensive record? What's the rarest and most expensive record you have, do you think?
Yeah, this Andy Warhol probably actually it makes something like $2,000, whatever. It depends a little bit on the condition. This is a quite expensive one. And also the banana, the Andy Warhol banana makes quite some price in this condition. But I jumped in a little bit before, let's say 20 years ago, which was before it got also fashionable to collect records. So I could own some things. I have this awful, sorry, calling awful. It's this one is very expensive too. I don't know how many British colleagues and friends have ever seen this terrible Beatles cover.
I'm going to share my screen so you can see.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's awful. It's the so-called Butcher's cover from the
Butcher's
Beatles.
cover, yeah.
Butcher's, yeah.
Butcher's cover.
And it was, as you know, the Beatles were commercialized in the US by Capitol Records. Some VJ in the first sessions, and not by Parlophone or Apple or so. And I don't know who came to this crazy idea to have it. I think it was the second record sold in the state. It was out one day, and then Capitol was put so much under pressure they had to get them all back. And mine is a little bit in a bad state because it's a so-called third state. So they have pushed another picture on it. And like postal stamp with steam, you try to take this second cover away, and then the state is there. To buy it probably in a good condition, I saw something on eBay recently. It's $20,000 with an original Capitol letter. So just to see a little bit what prices could be. I don't know. Today, a good Esquire record is £100 to start in, and then it depends. It goes up to 1,000 probably, depending a little bit. This is the prices. So I don't know.
So Stefano, let's just finish by talking about the revival of vinyl, which we're all happy about. But do you think that with that has come good quality cover art again, or was the skill lost when we all went to CDs? It's very hard to pull off a fantastic CD cover. I mean, it does happen, but what about you? You've got a few examples, I think, of modern vinyl that you think are good covers.
Yes, I still have a look as an interested person, so I don't try to make judgment. I think covers and vinyl comes again. I just have some behind, but nice or not nice. I mean, Kamasi Washington, one of my favorites. I don't know. It's an amazing cover anyway. You know, I don't want to judge it, but you see artists come up again with this kind of things.
It looks like it's been taken with the 12-inch format in mind, as opposed to it's not a CD cover that's been blown up. It's actually a vinyl cover, isn't it?
The American Utopia from David Byrnes, it's not so jazz, but to see, I think most come in again with the idea to have a quality package, which comes back a little bit to your question. No, I think it was lost with the CD-ROM. So the CD-ROM was just a practical package, and you couldn't see really. Now going back to this 12-inch format probably obliges most of the artists to, or the producers or the records company, to think again about the quality, because you can see it, you have it in your hands. And I'm quite happy, not just because I'm a vinyl collector, but because it comes back a little bit this package question, which in this world where we are actually, virtual world, having something in your hand is also interesting to look at it and see details you have to find.
So a very hard question if you've got 10,000 records, but in terms of your jazz records, what if you had to do the classic thing? Let's say you had to keep a couple of records, two or three vinyls for their covers. What would you keep?
Yeah, jazz. It's jazz. It's obviously some holy grail things. Of course, you have to have Saxophone Colossus. Let me see if I find it, but I mean, whatever it is, but this is a mix up again, like the Soul Train, the cover and the content are something you have to have. This is certainly something, but again, I don't know if it's my right or left brain who talks. Is it more the emotional side, or is it more the by the way, just to show you, this is the Saxophone Colossus, to show how free Prestige was. This is published in Italy. So this is the Italian cover of the Saxophone Colossus. I would say you see Italian, inside there. Mm-hmm. There's an Italian design. So this is certainly something I have some blue notes, obviously, the Red Minds, you can't escape not to have some of them. I don't know what I see, but I mean, these are classical, classics. Oh, yeah. You somehow you cannot avoid to have something like this, the Blue Note. I'm not very in Blue Note. This is again a Blue Note Andy Warhol. You see the Andy Warhol styles, obviously. I can show you something which is more tricky. A tricky thing. Let me see if I find it. Yeah, I have to be very attentive. I don't know if you can find it, but some of the vinyl addicts maybe will understand what it is. This is maybe it's just a history, and I see so it will talk, but this is the first record that was produced 1970s. The original Dixieland Jazz, written with two S and not two Z band. And funny again, you would think of Afro-American music. This is Nick LaRocca, which was an Italian immigrant. So what is jazz Afro-American? They got first to Columbia Records in 17. The first registration is not by RCA Victor, but by Columbia. And Columbia said this music has no commercial future. These records I keep in my hand, it's an original, sold 1 million copies 100 years ago, 1 million 100 years ago, just to see also how they can go wrong with their commercial ideas. So this is, for example, something I like to have in my hands. It's a shellac, it's 78 RPM, but gives a certain historic approach to the.
I think that's a good place to stop, Stefano. That's a great place to stop with the first jazz record, 1917, 10-inch shellac, 78 RPM. Thank you so much. The exhibition is a treat, and well done for kind of just for being involved with this music and for collecting, and then doing what not all collectors do, because not all collectors share, and you like to share. That's a nice thing, right? That's a good meaning for you to share what you have with other people.
But let me at the end also, if you allow me just to say it, I mean, some people made it possible. This is the dream for a collector. I always say, what is a collection if you can share it? It's something you have in your room, you can look at. And it's now the 5th year. I try yearly to have an exhibition because I would like to share, to to bring in people in this world. And obviously behind we have Simon with us. I mean, this site. I was a little bit disappointed. You see in the back, there is still the bag from the last year London Jazz Festival. No, we are jazz. Now was called. We were a Cardigan Hall. At the beginning, when this stuff with COVID and whatever started, I was disappointed, not to have a physical thing. I get elder, probably my daughters are easier in this world, and I'm now very happy, Simon, now with what you have created virtually. Sirius made it possible. I mean, David Jones, he was driving behind. And I would mention, if you allow me, also John Williamson from EFG, because you have to have a sponsor. And John is a jazz man. He's obviously the sponsor, but it wouldn't have been possible without him saying we would like to try something like this. So I'm extremely happy, even if it's virtual, not because it's virtual, but I would like to be in London now. This is basically my unpleasant situation, because London is London.
Even those of us that are in London don't feel like we're in London. We're in our homes. So look, Stefano, thank you very much, and really appreciate it. Do check out the site. Thank you to Simon Ledbetter as well. Beautiful site, and thank you for giving us some insight into it. Do check out the site. I'll just plug a few things. I'm on Jazz FM tonight with a preview of some of the other things coming up in the Jazz Festival, and I'm producing a TV show on Friday night on BBC4, Jazz 625. We're bringing it back for one night only, with a lineup which features some of the best current UK jazz musicians, Sons of Kemet and Yubaya Garcia, Ezra Collective, and more. Thank you very much to Sirius. Thank you to the EFG London Jazz Festival. Thanks for Gary for making it all work. Apologies for my cock up at the beginning when I was listening to myself 3 times somehow, but appreciate it. Thank you, Stefano, again, and have a good festival. Check out all the other brilliant stuff that's happening online. Loads of good gigs are streaming. Thank you.
Bye.